maybe a question to ask yourself, right? If your security telemetry problems were no longer a problem, they just worked. You don't have to think about cost trade-offs. You can run any analysis that you want. What would that do to your security program? And if that's interesting for you, then you can come talk to me.
Gal, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah. Hey, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day here in 2026. I can't really complain. How about you?
Beautiful. Enjoying everything that's going on.
Is that right? Oh, well, that's amazing. So, I've known you for a little bit and I know what you're working on, but I would love to kind of jump into, your background, growing up, your career trajectory, to right up to, the story of Beacon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, it's a cliche, I guess, but I've always wanted to start a technology startup. I grew up in a house where both my parents were engineers, one in Intel and one in IBM. So growing up around computers, when I was 6 years old, I learned Visual Basic 3. I think mostly as a way for my parents to get me to do a thing when they're working. So it was sort of like, we have a computer, go use it. And it went downhill from there, I guess. So by high school, I was working in Intel Corporation, doing software engineering while I'm in high school.
Wait, really?
Yes. When I was I lived in the States. So you see my accent. I'm Israeli, but I lived in the States when I was in high school. When I came back from high school, I had an opportunity in my 11th and 10th grade to spend, because there was some overlap in content between the US and the Israeli school. So I had a little bit of free time. And the idea was, would I do a degree or go work at Intel? Because my dad worked at Intel. And I ended up working on their networking stack for their supercomputers. So Intel has supercomputers to simulate chips. Like when they do the QA for chips, they have a very big one in Haifa and a big one in Ireland. Yeah. And that's a big machine. And they were having challenges with networking there. And so I spent 50% of my time for about a year fixing networking problems.
How did you land that gig in high school?
My dad was a VP at Intel. They were like, could you look at this guy? And Intel, as you know, is a very straight edge company. And they were like, we will find somebody who can look at this, but he may not be in any of your organization. So the entire org that you're reporting to or part of, it has to be somewhere else. And so they interviewed me. The story goes, and it's a little bit of tooting my horn, but the story goes, the team lead that took me was kind of like, sure, I'll take this high school kid because they're funding it for me and it's fine. And when I left, and again, I don't want to toot my own horn, but he asked for 2 more headcount. Yeah. Because he was wow. He was like, this guy was doing some good stuff. And then I grew up reading the books and read 0 to 1 and all the different things.
Yeah. And
I don't know if you know, but in Israel, there aren't that, when I was younger, especially, there weren't that many exciting corporate tech jobs. I was all wanted to be in tech. Now there's Google and Facebook and that, but those things weren't around back then. And Intel is fine. Great. But it's more hardware. And so I always wanted to do something in software, and entrepreneurship was very, very exciting for me. I always felt, and it's a little bit philosophical, the world of work, of adult life, there's a lot of parts of it where you're separated from reality. If you work in a big corp, you work on a thing, you don't know how it interacts with the world. You're very far away from the actual reality.
Yeah.
There's something about being an entrepreneur, which is you're a warrior in the field, and what you can't, you have to interact with the actual challenge. And if you fail, you have to pay the price. And if you succeed, then you succeed. And it was always exciting for me to be in actual touch with the reality of the issue, the reality of the problem, the actual objection, the real thing, and not just the philosophical part of it. So, So after that, I also did some reverse engineering of World of Warcraft and other computer games. Actually, before I worked at Intel, I reverse engineered some protocols and sold the specs to a website and got $1,000 for it, which funded half of my first laptop when I was in the US in high school. So I was always doing that sort of stuff. And then in the military service for Israel, I was in intelligence. And so that was a great place. It was really interesting because it was such a very dense population of very highly skilled people who are also very nice. And so I was educated in things like never give up. Everything is possible. Anything that you think is good, there is a better version of that that can be better. I was charged with tasks where I knew that if it takes me, it's an impossible problem. There may be no solution. Every day I delay can have meaningful impact on geopolitics. I mean, there were things we did that ended up, I mean, I'm not going to talk about it, but like in newspapers in the world. I never tell anybody which things it is, but like, we did things that the world has not heard of and are insane.
So they just threw a whole bunch of Kobayashi Maru scenarios at you.
There is there is a piece of training where so I also had a chance to run the training for a bit. There are parts of training where you on purpose give the students open questions that the state of the art doesn't know how to resolve. And sometimes the students solve them and advance the field. And it's part of the training where I was of like, you don't know what's impossible and what's possible. And sometimes you don't succeed. And there are problems we were given. There was a set of problems. They don't do it today anymore. It's like a more mathy one, but you get a problem and you do not have the skills to solve it. Like it is beyond your capabilities. And they go, well, you have 100 hours. And so for the first hour, you're just sitting at a desk. There's no cell phones. You're like, I can't solve this, right? Yeah. And after an hour of not solving it, you get bored. And so for the second hour, you despair, right? And then after the second hour is done, you're like, you're done. You're tired. You're done being despaired. You're done being like convinced that you can't do it. And so you try. And so you start redeveloping the required theory and learning the stuff. And by the 10th hour, you have progress. And so you had to learn the actual content is interesting, but like it's not the point. The point is to learn to get over your feeling that something is impossible. And then you do that like 1 million times in a row until that is trained out of you where nothing is impossible. Anytime you think something is not possible, that is an emotional challenge of yours, not a limitation of physical reality.
Well, it echoes to me something that I've always had an issue with people in teams. It's, don't tell me no, it can't be done. It can be done, but it could be painful to do it more than what we want to do, but you first need to go through and kind of figure that out. And it was really a personality thing for me. I couldn't solve that for somebody or train that out of them. It was, how do I find somebody that would take a problem and said, yeah, come hell or high water, I'm going to take that hill. I don't know how to solve it, but I'm going to, burn the bushes to kind of figure out how to do that. That's kind of, was that intended to find those personalities or to actually get them from one mindset to another?
It was a combination. So, yeah. I mean, if we had a 3-hour podcast, I'd be happy to talk through all the different methods. No, I'm happy to do another one if you want about the methods. Yeah. But it's not a secret, I think. But it would filter for people who have an aptitude for that. But then they would it was grueling. It was 10, 12 hours a day of difficult intellectual work of problems on the verge of impossibility, of like really in an environment where you don't go home. And yeah. I ran the course. So I ran the one part of the course. So I was like part of training. And it is psychologically structured to, I'd say, condition you into becoming that kind of person. So you take people who have that potential, and then you condition them for 6 to 9 months, where the purpose is beyond teaching them concrete information that they need to know, to turn them into people who look at a problem and are like, we're gonna solve this.
Yeah? I'm gonna call you on that later, not for this one, but for later. I'm fascinated by it because it was always one of the top 3 things or top 4 things in hiring people, getting good people to be on a highly effective teams. Anyways, so you go from 8,200, you go into working, and bam, you're right there at Beacon. Is that how it works?
No, there were a few steps in between. So yeah. I knew I wanted to do a startup, but I wasn't ready to commit yet. And so I started by doing some like freelance work. I did things like build a website for one of, at the time, Israel's top political parties, which was an interesting experience for another day. I found myself on stage next to the like person who was like head of the party at the press conference, which was funny. I hacked the iPhone like to recover information for like a recovery tool. This was before it was TPMs, so it was like it was just exploits. So I did exploit stuff there. And then I co-founded a startup called HiredScore. So I was the CTO. There was a US entrepreneur. Her name was Athena. She came with the idea. She came with initial funding. I was young, and I joined that. And I was there for about 2.5, 3 years. It ended up not working out from a co-founder dynamic. This was an AI startup in HR in 2011. So this is before LLMs. Like Word2Vec just came out, like embedding, if you know what that is. And we were actually, even back then, we wrote an algorithm that was able to filter people at a higher average accuracy than humans for like middle of the pile jobs. So not like call centers and not like engineers, but most of the middle of the economy. And we had some really cool like models of like quality companies and all that sort of stuff. It ended up being like the right team matchup with me and her. But she took it on, and actually she sold it to Workday 2 years ago for over $500 million.
Wow.
So it was a good, very, very good outcome. And she did an amazing job building that company into what it was. So
that's amazing.
So I do HiredScore. You know, back at the time it didn't exit yet. I had the bad experience with the dynamic there, and then I'm like, what do I want to do next? And when I was a freelancer, I had this interesting interaction where I wanted to go to South America, and it cost me 45,000 shekels to do my trip, and I had 100 hours of work about left, and my rate at the time was about I don't remember how it was, like 300 shekels an hour, so it would be 30,000 shekels, and I had a gap of 15,000 shekels between the trip I wanted to do and the time that I could do it. And so I did a lot of work on like reading on negotiation, and like I had a tense 30-minute negotiation with the person to like bring the number up, and I got it up to 450 shekel an hour. So 50% more. And I came out of that, and this was before HiredScore. I came out of that and I was like, 100 hours of my time are worth 300 shekel an hour, and then another hour of my time is worth 15,000 shekels an hour. I should potentially optimize that part to do more of it, because it's a good part, and I enjoyed it. And so after HiredScore, where I got exposure to sell into like large US enterprises, and like, I was a CTO, but it was, very customer facing. I wanted to do a transition to more business oriented roles. And then I went to join Signia. So a good friend of mine, Arik Gomanovsky, and we knew each other from the army, and he did Signia. He's later done Hermetic. And he was like, come go join Signia, and lots of travel, So like, great, I'm young, don't have kids. Incredible experience. So I was there for about a year, and I got to be like an engagement manager. So I did both hands-on IR work. We did things like collect terabytes of logs due to an FBI call and spin up a Hadoop cluster to search them, which is an insight that would later be relevant for what I'm doing today. And we stopped like crazy corporate espionage cases you've never heard of. We saved like large US corporations that you've heard of from attackers that were in there and hacked them. It was really, really crazy times. Posture, like the craziest companies. We can't, it's all very secret, so we can't talk about it. But I came out of that having been more of an engagement manager at the end. I did a lot of like pre and post sales as well, like talking to the customers. And I felt I was ready to be a more business oriented CEO. I've always on both sides of the things. And then a teammate said, come join the fund. And I was like, no, I want to do my own startup. And so what happened was Eric Schmidt is an investor and teammate. And so he came, and every company did a presentation. And because I was doing sales, I have good English. They're like, oh, you present this project. And it was a very successful presentation. And teammate was like, oh, we should work with you because you can like explain cyber really well and like whatever. And I was like, I want to do another company. And then I started ClearX. So this was around 2007-ish, 6-ish. And 17-ish. And blockchain is gaining momentum. And I'm sitting with a friend, and we're thinking about where does this impact the real world versus just being a casino? And we said was lots of companies have trust challenges, which are then taken over by middlemen who take a charge for everything that's going through. And if we could use blockchain, we could maybe disintermediate the middlemen with a much more efficient version, and that'll be interesting. And then we met a gentleman who was in the telco world, and he was a CEO of a tier 1 wholesale carrier, so like the ones who do intercontinental cables and stuff. And he was like, yes, this could revolutionize the telco industry. And so we started ClearX, where the idea was to help large companies do business with each other for lots of transactional things. So like imagine you are, I don't know, in this example, Vodafone and AT&T. Lots of people in Vodafone use stuff in AT&T and vice versa. That's a like $5 billion invoice made of 20-cent increments. And that entire thing is complicated. And we were like, if we can make that peer-to-peer and efficient, that would be really cool. And you could leverage digital currency also on top to make the transfers efficient. Because like international business is the opposite of what the banking system is set up for, because it's most efficient inside the country. It's less efficient international. So we did that for 5 years. And turns out that the acquisition cost was too high. So I was chosen at one time for top 100 most powerful people in telco in the world. I wrote papers for the UN, for the ITUT with my name on them, for GSMA. We were really moving the industry forward. But it turns out that the implementation complexities and the telco psychology, which is very net like zero sum, makes it really hard. Our vision was to turn them into cloud providers where you can buy stuff from all of them, but it didn't pan out. And so that's the company didn't end up working. And then a teammate called and they were like, hey, maybe you do come work for us. Yeah. And it was a great timing. And then I became Teammate's group CTO. So
that's got to be a fun gig. I like those guys.
Man, they're awesome. Yeah. Very, very, very special fund with really smart and really nice people. I mean, and it was really cool. And the cool part was, so Teammates, everybody there is super talented. And they're all both amazing people and experts at their fields in a very, very deep way. But they're all like focused on their area. So like the cyber people do cyber, and like Teammates a very like content heavy, like theme heavy sort of fund. They do incubations. I had the chance to see everything. So I was doing fintech and I was doing digital health and I was doing cyber and I was doing AI and I was doing like general data. It was a little bit, I mean, I was advising the advisors, I guess, which is like not as exciting for the long term. But I did get to do presentations at the CISO summits around like the last one I did was about Gen AI. This was 3 or 4 years ago. And my predictions are still I think spot on. I actually came to the team and I was like, guys, Gen AI is going to be a thing. Let's do it. Yeah. I got to like help. I mean, I got to have a small part, but help companies incubate like Ox and Gem and Orchid and support portfolio companies like Port and Nagomi and Talon and Dig, and then like 40Cs in fintech and April and like just a wide breadth of, and these companies are phenomenal people. And for me, it was like, on one hand, you spend your time with people like Nadav and Rakefet and Ronan, like these generational leaders and operators. On the other side, you have the people who, like the workers at the fund, who are super smart, and then these crazy founders. And it's like a playground to do everything. So it was really, really fun.
That's awesome. It's interesting, going through, thank you for that. But it's really interesting when you think about not just what makes a successful startup, it's really the team. And that's what, VCs generally prioritize. Your background, repeat founder, been on both sides, to kind of, I'm pretty sure even though it was the CTO role and then your other roles, the importance of the go-to-market build out, differentiating versus product, really well-rounded, really good experience. And you and I will sit down and have to have a beer night to exchange war stories. Back in the day, this was 30 years ago, I started out in the AMP space when it wasn't even cyber or attack and penetration. And so I did, it's not about me, but it's a fun time. I know that gig. I know the reverse engineering stuff. It's It's fun. I mean, I am completely incompetent by today's standards.
I
I
think
mean,
you can ask Claude to do it, I think, if you want.
well, it'll still be better than what I did back in those days. So Teammate is a great experience, and then you said, "Hey, I want to go do my own thing." And what was your thought process going from I want to do something to, "Hey, this is what I want to do"?
So when I joined Teammate, I told them, "Listen, guys, I don't see myself as a like non-partner at a firm forever. I'm not even sure I want to be a VC. I'm here as a stopover to doing another company." And it was said in the beginning, I promised them that for 12 months, I don't generate any ideas, so it doesn't tempt me. And then I stay another, like at least 18 months for the whole period. I ended up staying for 2.5 years because they're awesome. Near the end, I was working on the idea, and I met Or Matatia, my co-founder here at Beacon. And we were sitting, and he had this nugget of an idea, and he was choosing who to share it with because it's cyber is very competitive, and he ended up deciding to share it with me. And we actually worked together. I was volunteering at the 8200 Alumni Association, and so I actually kind of worked under him there, and we had a good time together. And he's like, "I have this nugget of an idea." And Or has just like phenomenal product and like market sense, and so when he has an idea like that, you listen. And I go, "All right." And he says, "Listen, there's something with like telemetry and logs." And now, interesting. So, Cribble's a big player in this space. Cribble is virtually unknown in Israel, especially 2 years ago, even though it's a company that's grown explosively. And he goes, "There's this thing called Cribble, which is, gaining traction." He was at Mitiga, and he was like, "With Mitiga, like we see this thing with logs." He's like, "I did nation state defense, and we had a challenge with logs. Like this thing with telemetry doesn't work really well." And I thought about my days, and I was like, at Signia, I had to spin up Hadoop clusters by hand to like do a search. Because, if you paid Splunk, that would have been more expensive than paying the attackers probably. And so it is an unsolved problem. And then we're like, all right. And we start looking into it. And actually, Teammate comes back to me and they say, "Listen, we love you so much. Maybe you stay here and we get you on track to be a partner." And that was a difficult decision for me. And at the same time, HiredScore gets sold. So I get informed of the exit and like the positive outcome and the money. And so I'm in this situation where I'm like, I could stay at Teammate and be on this path to like infinite curiosity, interest, and social status and money for the next decade. I could go, take the money from the exit and live a cushy life of some sort, I guess. And I could go do this startup. And I go to my wife and she goes, "Are you an idiot? Go to Teammate. Like, what are you talking about? what the hell are you doing?"
Smart woman.
Yes. I mean, she married me, so there's a limit to how smart she is, I guess. And then I go, well, it has always been my dream to start a company. Like I read management books for fun. Like I would like think of a book to read and then like read 5 Dysfunctions of a Team or like Effective Executive, which is a very dry book to like read for fun. And like, 0 to 1, like I enjoy, I've been in this like startup space forever. And I was like, and I took to some advisors and I realized that to be good at VC, you come into your own, it takes 7 to 10 years. Now, some people do it faster. Some people, close a great deal or have a great aptitude for it. But VC, to build the relationships, to build the tastes, to like know what you're doing, it takes you 7 years to be good. And then you can, be exceptional, but it takes a long time to do well. And if I start that now when I was 35, I'll be done. And I like to be good. So I'll be accepted. It'll take me 10 years, right? I'll be 45. Will I do a company again? And so I realized that it was sort of like, do I want to do my dream? Do I want to do a dream or not? And it might not work out, but it's like and you can do a startup at any stage. I actually, and one of the things I didn't discuss, I was the first employee of a ray tracing company that was founded by a 70-year-old guy who sold it to Snapchat for $42 million. So you can start in any age. And so I was like, I could probably do this later. The startup right now is the right time. I mean, I just had my firstborn, so not perfect time, but it's the right time. If the money comes in, it looks good, I'd still probably want to do a startup anyways. I spoke to some founders who exited and they were like, well, we just go do another startup. I mean, that's what we want to do. And between Orr's talent, and Ido's, which we then the team got together, and the idea of Beacon, I was like, this is a once in a lifetime idea. And I know that sounds dumb because like cyber, there's 1 million startups. I really thought at the time, and since then my conviction has only grown, that we are in a place that will be super valuable, be able to get rapid traction. The tech is super interesting, so just it's fun on like a concrete level. And if we do this well, we will fundamentally transform how cybersecurity is done for the better, be a hero to defenders, and like, you know, make bank, I guess. So I was like, I have seen ideas. I was at a fund. It is rare to find a combination of talent and timing where you're like, I mean, it's not promised you have to execute, but this could be a generational company. And I can tell you that in the last year and a half of running the company, I believe we're right. We're on that track. And so I was like, I'm not gonna give this up. My wife doesn't like that choice. And now with a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old, we have another kid. It is very tough to be a startup CEO. You know, it's seed stage with 2 kids in the house. It is the most difficult thing I've ever done. And this is my 3rd startup. So like, you know, I've done a thing or two.
Yeah.
But it's you know, I feel like I'm where I need to be, and I predicted that correctly. Now, who knows what, you know, I might have gone to Teammate and I would have said this is the most amazing job in the world, and I know I would have enjoyed the people there immensely. But I don't know, maybe they'll take me after, I guess.
That's awesome. So you founded it what, 2 years ago ish, and gone through the design partner.
You mean less than 2 years ago? A year and a half now.
And you went through the design partnership process and kind of came out of stealth. What was the design partnership? Actually, let me take a step back. What is Beacon?
What is Beacon? So Beacon, we're a company that handles security telemetry. So logs, and in the future we'll handle configuration as well. We collect logs at any scale, from any environment, from any source. It could be on-prem cloud, everything together. It could be hundreds of terabytes a day. I mean, we haven't done petabytes yet, but we could. It's super high efficient scale. And the purpose of that is like to turn security data into something that moves the needle on security outcomes. Security people are not data engineers. They're usually not infrastructure engineers. And there is just a growing amount of telemetry and data and sources. And it's a very, very difficult problem, and it's just getting worse. With AI, it's going to get even worse. And what we do is we make that problem go away. So cost gets optimized, you're collecting the right things, your coverage is correct, you stop dealing with collectors and like plumbing and that sort of stuff. It just works with very little work on your side. And then we help unlock deep security information. Because one of the amazing thing that's happened, and maybe you were expecting a shorter answer for this, but amazing thing that's happened is you can now see pretty much everything in logs. I mean, BEPF is special, but
well, let me push back. If I'm sitting in the audience, what I just heard is we're building a SIM.
I mean,
so what is the problem with existing architectures and SIMs that Beacon is solving?
So, are we building a SIM? I think that's yet to be seen. We might build a SIM, but we think that in the current architecture, SIMs only provide a part of the solution. So SIMs are generally centralized, vertically integrated repositories of data. You have to bring everything to one place. It has to fit that paradigm, right? And then you brought it there, it fits that paradigm. It's expensive. You have to pay a lot of money.
When you say fit that paradigm, are you talking about the data transformation to fit into like more of a structured database?
Yeah, you have to normalize it to the SIM schema. You have to like do a whole bunch of stuff to make it effective with it. And sometimes they have built-in content, but if they don't, you have to fit with that concept and with that schema for that SIM in a way that's easy to use in that SIM or has in the existing content. SIMs are expensive. They end up being about $2 per gig for ingest. And yes, there's a range, but I know all the pricing tables by heart, and I can tell you it's about $2 per gig on average. If you're paying more, call me. I'll tell you how to get it lower. And then after you do all that, they are not real-time systems. So you're expecting 15 minutes to an hour from when data comes in to when a detection runs. So like I mean, if you're doing a scheduled search on Splunk that runs every hour, and the data takes 15 minutes to go through the ingestion pipelines and get to where it is, it can take a while before stuff happens, right? And I think the core thing that the SIMs have a challenge is that SIMs are generally observability platforms that are generic with a smart dashboard on top that's for security. And that means that a lot of the complexity of security is passed on to the user. If you have many sources and many use cases, you have to so, all right, I'll give you an example. If you have CrowdStrike or Wiz, right? They're similar. It doesn't matter if your environment is simple, it's one server, or it's like 10,000 servers. Your administration is pretty much similar, right? Endpoints, they get solved, cloud stuff, you might have more findings, but making the value out of the system is similar. If you have a 3 computer setup or a 10,000 computer setup or a 100,000 computer setup, that's an exponentially difficult problem to get SIMs working well for. They pass the complexity on to you, right? You have to go deal with all the stuff that's going on there. And that's fine. It's just not enough when there's more and more data sources, more and more volume. It's multi-cloud, it's on-prem as well. Like, that's just an untractable problem for most organizations. And I'll say something that's maybe a little bit extreme. From a certain size of org, you have to think about your coverage, optimize the logs, normalize, and deal with connectors. Otherwise, your detection program and investment is not viable. You can't afford it. You can't really put it to play. And so that's why, by the way, we've seen Cribble do well, even though they didn't start in security. That's why we've seen Observo and Onum get bought by new upcoming SIM players. It is a required architectural component from a certain scale today. And I think that's not a controversial statement. Like, you have to have something. Some companies roll their own with like Logstash or whatever, but you need to have that piece as part of modern security today.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I'm a operations guy, when I started out, and that's very near and dear to my heart in regards to the SOC, et cetera. And so the problem, and I'm not, usually the problems are really product wise versus category wise, right? And so, the SIM to me is logging and analytics SIM, that's just my point of reference. But the problems that we've had with the technologies are, you brought up connectors, and that's a big one. And so if I have homegrown applications, whatever it is, I got to roll my own connector. Somebody actually can code and kind of do that kind of a data ingestion. And that's actually a big problem if I have like 1,000 different services that I need to enroll. That's a multi-year really focused on writing those connectors. The second problem is, I think we have better analytics today. You talked about LMs before, and obviously in the AI space, general category, there's a lot of algos, whether it's similarity algorithms or otherwise, that are really, really helpful. I don't see those in modern products in this category as a general rule. Regular expression is fantastic, but I'd like something a little bit more. And I think you brought up the one-time reporting versus, the in-stream kind of metrics, for lack of a better word. Can I get that intelligence in stream versus like an SQL kind of connection on a data pool, which is going to take some time? And how do I balance that? If I focus those two, I think what I'm hearing is, hey, we're adding we're minimizing those hurdles in a lot of ways, and then can build upon the intelligence capability of the pipeline that we've effectively created for the data management for a security team. Am I in the ballpark?
Yeah, I think you're in the ballpark. So I think SIMs are very vertically integrated. They are the connector and the ETL and the lake and the query and the workflow management and the detection library. They're everything together. And the world has become very complex. And it's very hard to build a vertical product that does everything really, really well. And a lot of these tools have over time transitioned to be really good at the dashboarding, at the detection rules, at the workflow management, at doing very rapid investigative queries. That means they haven't become very good at lots of connectors, very large data volumes, distributed architectures, real-time information stuff. And so what we believe is that like there's a little bit of a disaggregation or like a unbundling where we can handle all your connectors and all your data normalization and all your real-time in-stream stuff. Anything that you're going to run once every hour probably would run better as a in-stream query versus a scheduled query on a database from a performance perspective, right? Because it's the same thing. We can embed optimization. If we know it's going to run every hour forever, we can compile that to much lower level code and deploy it in stream in a distributed fashion. We don't have to run it, in some central place.
Are you able to get those in stream, more advanced, multi-source analysis where that was really part of the, quote, I use regular expression as an example, of 15 different sources to identify the attacker? You're able to do that in stream.
Yeah, we can do any number of sources at any scale that you want at a cost efficiency that is much, much, much better, including stateful stuff. If you want to do event 1, then event 2, then event 3, we're happy to do that. You want to do window aggregations, and we do it all with like smart stream processing. So if a message gets dropped, we have semantics around that. If there's a parsing problem, there's a dead letter queue. Like it is a full-on stream processing system. It's similar in architecture to the ones used by the ad tech industry to do like which ad was the one that most converted. So it's a similar like conceptual problem. Like there's all these events. So this, by the way, the thing a lot of people in cybersecurity don't know, you can do in-stream analysis to the same level of complexity that you can do in a database as a query. And there's certain queries which work better in this way and ones that work better in this way, but we can do any level of complexity. Now, you go complex enough, there's compute issues, but any level of complexity we can do in stream, including stateful, including like cross stream, including all of that. And we can do that. Yes.
So I'm going to come back. I'm going to pick a little bit on a couple of those things in a bit, but I think from a customer's perspective, what does the integration look like? And let's assume, I don't know, a 3,000 employee type company with 1,000 streams and SaaS, the deal. What does that look like from day 0 to, hey, are you fully up and running on day 90? Or what does that look like?
All right. So before we start, what we usually do is we do what we call SIM scanning. We open a screen share and we look at your existing setup if it's not a new setup. And then we also have a discussion of what you're trying to collect. And we help you build a plan, like what's most important, what's less important, just so that we want to make sure that any work that you do is relevant for you. And we come back and we say, listen, these data sources, we can optimize by 70, 80%. Without impacting fidelity. We actually maybe we'll ask for your detections to help align it to your detection. So your operations are not impacted in any way, and you save 70% of the volume. It's like a WAF or like a big data source. For these SaaS apps, we're like, do you need, maybe we need to normalize them for you. For these ones, your SIM already has built-in content. We know all the SIMs, we know what they have. So we knew they have built-in content. We might even say, rarely this one, if you're Sentinel and you want an Azure source, we might say, listen, you should just ingest it natively because like we can do it, but it's not worth the hassle for the setup because like if there's a native, like Microsoft's really good at ingesting Microsoft stuff. And so we do that. Well, also, if you're a big org, not a 3,000 one, we might have multiple clouds and on-prem, we'd help you figure out where you would put the concentrators because we can run on-prem, different cloud environments. We can do SaaS, we can do in your cloud, like whatever you want. That's a 1-hour discussion, usually. And then, onboarding, if you want to onboard a data source that we already have, and we have, near 100, and we have built 4 in 1 day. So like our limitation is API keys, usually not like somebody giving us access and not like the actual building. That's like click, give information, done, and streams. And we have built a lot of the use cases, a lot of scenarios. We can ingest the same data source from multiple different ways. Like there's a customer where we migrated 52 streams from SIM A to SIM B with including normalization and pipelines that were there in 2 weeks. So end to end, and they're done, they could move over. So that's very, very fast. If you need a new reduction recipe to optimize size, if you have sources we don't have, there's mapping that has to do, then we have an in-house team of researchers that will do that for you. It's part of the service. And we tell you how long it takes. There's no additional cost. And what we've done is like we've really that connector thing you mentioned. What we've realized is there's an infinite world of connectors. There's an infinite requirement for normalization. There's an infinite requirement for optimization. Human labor is not going to do this. And so we have a human AI team. And we can do it with LLMs and our own custom pipelines that do it really, really effectively. And we've got it down. Like, we have done OCSF normalizations for multi 100 message types in 4 hours before a human has to look at it and verify. We've done connectors autonomously. Like, here's the API code, here's the stuff to generate in our framework with all our guardrails, etc. And so we can deliver these things at like incredible speeds. Now, it doesn't always work, and we're always growing and learning. But that lets us, hey, we're a year and a half on the road, and we have, almost as many connectors as Cribble. It was like an 8-year-old company, right? And they have a lot more manpower. So like, our vision is like, connectors should not be an issue. Transformation, that takes longer. Reductions are more complicated, but that should be something that we can do for you. Similarly, normalizations. It does require, the reason we can do it is we have a team of researchers, all ex-military intelligence, ex-SOC, people who worked in SOCs or worked as attackers, who could really understand the actual security use case. When people do optimization, they're like, I'll remove all the GET requests. And customers are like, maybe I need them. We don't say that. What we say is, hey, these type of GET requests represent a query into the public interface for this type of service. They are not relevant for an attack. Let's aggregate them on an hourly basis. But these type of GET requests, they respond to logged in stuff, and therefore they should be aggregated maybe on a 1-minute basis.
Yeah, and that was part of one of the things that kind of resonated for me, and this is more of a question than a statement. When you're doing it in stream, looking at those, hey, I've got to get requests for the index of the root site. We'll roll them up into a meta metric, every hour with those the source IPs. So you have that general data versus the full fidelity of, other kind of transactions in the service, which you really want that full payload kind of in there in a transaction. Is that, because you've talked a couple of times about, hey, we're saving you a lot of data storage. I think that's the efficiency intent that you're talking about. Is that it, or is that it plus a whole bunch of other things? Maybe you can kind of touch on that core data value savings, right?
All right. So at Beacon, we don't do just optimization. We help connect stuff. We help normalize. We do enrichments. We help give the right posture. We're going to be, doing more stuff in the future around analysis and detections in stream. But for the data optimization side, very popular product. We have a very large set of tools. We actually have a LinkedIn post up on our company page, if you want to, in our blog, that shows a little bit of those behind the scenes. A researcher wrote it up, so you can look at that. But basically, there are certain situations, in many logs, there is redundant information. There's information which is not useful at all. So that's like layer one. To give you one example, VPC flow logs, famously very, very noisy log. Every single log line, which represents a connection, has the log version, which is the number 2. I don't think you want to pay for the number 2 for every connection in your network. I would recommend remove the number 2. And if it's ever not the number 2, I'll tell you, right? That's like very, very easy and simple. There are WAF systems or other systems which list the rules configured, and a lot of the rules don't hit. And so the log is basically, this rule hit and all these ones did not. We say, like, you don't need to save the list of every rule that never hit anything. Like, so there's stuff that's basic, like removing that sort of stuff. Another layer is stuff like removing fields. So certain fields are not useful or duplicative. There are certain messages that are duplicative. There's certain transactions that happen that have 5 log lines, but only represent one logical thing. And so we extract the logical thing and you don't lose any fidelity, right? So that's a world of like lossless logical reduction. And then you start getting to the more lossy stuff. So some aggregations, summarized for the last minute. It doesn't have to be like hours. It can be like the last minute, the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 seconds, depending on the situation. You might do something, and it might be adaptive. For example, if you have a WAF, if a DDoS attack is underway, you care a little bit less about the individual, to get the data very, very fast. But if there's no DDoS attack underway for the allow, or if for the allows, you want something else. So you could do it differently for allows or blocks. You could do it for DDoS or not. We can smart suggest the aggregations, and that's a little bit of a fidelity trade-off. Now, we do it in view of how security people work, the actual threat landscape, MITRE attack, your actual detections and queries you run in your SIM, so that it's a drop-in for what you do. Now, you can also duplicate the data and send all the raw stuff to cold storage. And we will be in the future rolling out a way to search over that and save it very compressed. And so we believe you should be able to get, a year or more of like raw log cold storage compressed intelligently searchable. And we're going to roll that out later in the year for very little cost, for like very, very, very low cost. That's different than your SIM, who gets the information relevant for detection, investigation, triage, which we have a view over 10 years.
I mean, and I want to make sure I heard correctly. And, all God's children of customers are different, and number of systems and volume, of course. But we always had hey, I want 6 months of logs in storage. It would be great if I could get a year, but you never really get that, because you're really talking about, 6 months, you're in the petabyte range. Beyond that, you're even larger. It's like, you just can't do that. Are you saying that you're able to say, generally speaking, for your customer base, listen, I can get you 1 year, and that's because of the reduction, it's not going to be in that petabyte range. It's going to be much smaller because we've driven efficiencies in. What does that look like? Because you brought your $2 a gig kind of statement in here. What are your actually, maybe a better question, your existing customer profile, no names, of course, that's not relevant, but what does that look like of number of gigs pre and post using Beacon? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, I'll answer your second question and your first one. So pre, there's a range. We have customers with 50 gigs or 100 gigs a day, the smaller ones, design partners, that sort of stuff. And we're now in interactions with ones who do 100 terabytes a day. So we can do that entire range cost effectively. And one of the things we're really proud of is our infrastructure can handle very small customers cost effectively. And I mean, it's a little bit less cost effective. There's overhead, and very, very large ones. We've not hit our ceiling technologically. We could probably go higher than 100 terabytes a day. We could go to petabytes a day. And we can do all of that cost effectively. So we've done all those sizes, and they all work really well. For reduction, I mean, it has to do with the customer use case. We tend to see 50% volume reduction, 70% volume reductions. It depends on what the customer has already, how much they've tuned it. It's also for example, sometimes because we come in, there's a customer that we were working with, they did not ingest VPC flow logs. We reduced them by 99.5% for them for their use cases, and then they ingested them. So it increased their license for their SIM, not reduced it, but they get, we effectively reduced it by a lot. There was another customer with a large WAF, and we did 70% reduction on that WAF, which then let them ingest the entire thing versus just some selected domains. And so their security coverage went up. Their SIM license did actually not materially change because of their decision. So volume didn't go down, but they were ingesting everything. And now they can ingest other cloud stuff they were not ingesting because they couldn't afford it. And so their security costs went up. It wasn't a cost saving play in the core sense. It was what's your effective Beacon thing? And we do, we do everything from 30% on the low end to not the lows are straight, 70, 80, 90%. And sometimes we sometimes we have options. Sometimes we're you can do it for 30% and keep all fidelity. But if you're really strapped for cash but need coverage, we can do 90%, but you only get some subset. At least it's better than nothing for what you need. It has to do with the customer needs. So that's that range. Regarding the storage, so I'll give you an example. $2 per gig for a SIM or whatever. S3 storage is a few cents per gig per month. gzip, or Z Standard 3, right, compresses logs. They're pretty repetitive if you tune it by 10 to 30. I'm not talking about any weird technology, right? So you're saying petabytes. You compress it by 10 to 30 times. So let's say 10 times, 10x. I'll be brief. Petabyte, you compress it by 10x. That's 100 gigs. Sorry, 100 terabytes. 100 terabytes at a few cents per gig is a few $1,000s a month. I mean, it's money, but it's not and that's no true. I just took gzip off the rack, put it in S3 and the high tier. Move it over to lower tier of S3, use a more tuned compressor, and you can start hitting double, triple, quadruple that. And now it becomes a no-brainer, I ran the numbers once and I thought was we could get to truly not a decision level. We haven't implemented this at scale yet, but the tech is there. The thing is, they're not like a SIM storage. They're not like infinitely queryable, like super fast, etc. But you don't need that. Like if I'm sitting in the front, you don't need that because I help you put the data you need where it's fast and the data you need for investigation where it's slow. And you can pull that when you need to. And like, so it's not just about the long-term storage. It's about building a full data architecture that lets you use that effectively. And you need to know security to do that. And that's what we know how to do, like how to do security in that sense.
So that's exactly right. Where usually the analytics in the stream is maybe metrics at a good level in a typical SIM, where all of the analytics is really going to be on the back end, like an SQL connection or otherwise. You're really shoving it to in-stream, those analytics in-stream. So your back end storage is really, the 5%, kind of Hail Mary queries that you need to run for something, that might be unique or abstract regression lookups for historical incidents, maybe. Yep. So let's talk about you touched on, and I don't know if we covered it fully, but the in-stream analytic capabilities. Can I, what does that UI look like? Can I just have my SOC engineers dynamically adjust and switch? Is it intuitive to be able to say, hey, I need more advanced capabilities, not just an if this, then that? Just walk me through a little bit what that looks like.
So we've invested a lot in making that super intuitive. It is a difficult problem space, and I am sure that it'll only get better, but it is already very good. We have opted to go with there's a no-code flow-like diagram. If you've used like a Demisto or a Times, it'll be familiar to you, where every step is a type of data transformation. It could be simple things like set a field. It could be things like run code of whatever kind that you like. We have few different languages supported. It could be things like do a window aggregation every 7 minutes for information which fits this query and like do this sum on the whole thing. And we add more of those all the time. It could be enriched with GeoIP. So there's a whole bunch of these. We've actually, we're investing in exposing that to things like Cloud Code with an MCP server as well. So you'd be able to actually, you can use agents to build those things if you want today. And it works really well because we've done a lot of work to explain it really well.
Wait, hold on. So the integrations with various things. I was going to ask about integrations with SIM and storage and data lakes and all of the different periphery kind of assets to really make this enabled. And then when you're really looking at the SOAR or the pipeline management of automation of a lot of stuff, it's still a little stitched together by security teams. You've got SOARs out there, you got torque tines, you got a whole bunch of different things. And of course, now you got the Prophets and Drop Zones of the world coming in, et cetera. So it's a really, I wouldn't say crowded market, but with the AI, push wave that we're seeing, that SOC AI push is a big one. So what are the integrations that you currently see as a priority, in that space? And which ones, if we're thinking about full pipeline automation of the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and maybe even beyond analysts, what is the looking forward plan? Because I'm sure not everything is done today, right?
Right. So our focus right now is on we're the first point of touch for the logs. So we're not replacing tier 1 analysts. There's companies who are focused on that, right? Usually logs come in, they get to a SIM or lake, and then everything else runs on top of that. We run underneath that. And so our job is to put the data in a way that makes the Prophets and the drop zones better. And by the way, we have customers where that's happened. So they have a AI SOC, and we had one customer, they had an AI SOC, it was not working well. And you were like, we will help your AI SOC. We exposed metadata of their schemas, we organized the data in the right way, and it went up to become net positive for the company, and they decided to continue the AI SOC. They weren't happy with it. And so agents, we all talk about context engineering, right? Agents enjoy data that is organized, that is contextualized in the right way. Like a lot of complexity does confuse them. And so our job is to bring that to them to be very, very highly efficient and organized in a structured way. And I think, and by the way, also for the question we have on our minds, what analytics would be helpful for an agent to know? And so we're like, what can we do in stream to make the agents effective? I will say, we're seeing success with just like doing these agents without specialized stuff, like just a Cloud Code or like an EMEA Codex or whatever. They can start doing security stuff if the data is cleaned up in the right way. Of course, these companies do amazing things. And so what we're doing is we get the data day one. We can process it at a cost and efficiency that is unparalleled. It's cheaper than anything. Like AI SOC companies charge dollars per alert, right? SIMs cost dollars per gig, right? We are in a different place than that. And so we want to get you the data clean and organized. For torque and times, currently they usually sit above the SIM systems, etc. One of the things we want to do, and we think is really cool, is what if you could take your detection rules, put them in Beacon, have them run, real time, like in less than a minute, and then have that trigger a SOAR thing where like things could happen like that and not like take an hour or 50 minutes or whatever. And that's upcoming, but that's sort of where we want to go with this. Similarly, we are asking ourselves things like, if we see all the logs, we could probably build you a list of all the hosts and who they're talking to. That's very useful for agents if they're doing autonomous investigation. That
asset management piece, asset visibility piece. Yeah.
I mean, asset management is like a wider thing. There's more stuff you need to do, but like you're an AI agent doing investigation. For you to do pivots is a lot of queries, a lot of tokens, takes you a lot of time. If Beacon can go like, all right, do you want to know all the hosts? Like which hosts talk to which hosts? We have that. Like, cause we did an in-stream analytics for that. So we have a real-time version of that. We can just give you that answer directly. And so we're like, what tools will make this go faster that we can do at our scale to make that work?
All right. Let me stretch it a little bit. And I already know what you're going to say because, whatever. Could I have an in-stream source IP by their behavior similarity algorithm to run? So in other words, this IP address is running a scan. I'll keep it simple. This IP address is running a scan that's a tenable, straight, full bore scan. That pattern matching of that behavior. Now I can say, instead of all of these events, it is one action. This IP is running a tenable scan, so I know maybe the maturity of that individual or what the intent of it is. And now I can match it to all other ones in a more sophisticated way. Hey, I've got somebody doing a very sophisticated poking on my service level. I want to know if this type of behavior, insert variants of attack types, is similar to others. Now we're getting into nation state patterns of attacks. We're getting into organized crime, you see what I mean?
Yes. So we can do that on the infrastructure level. We haven't built the content and UX to make it easy because that requires like it takes time to turn that into something that's like turnkey off. Like it's very customized, what you mentioned, right? So if you were like, I know exactly what I want to do, you can implement it today. Right? If you were like, well, I want to do baselining. So the question is, what does baselining mean? Like, it needs to be effective. And so that's like, I think part of our company's journey as we roll this out to the market is starting to say, like, how can we bring more of that more amazing analysis? Because our job isn't to optimize logs, right? If you want that, I can get you some vendors who do only that. Our question is, how do we unlock security outcomes and value from logs at enterprise scale, at any scale, by the way, small to big? And that's not just about collecting and optimizing. It's about understanding what you can do at very large scale with telemetry. Because the cool thing is, again, except for maybe eBPF stuff, but you can get that as logs as well. You can see everything going on by looking at logs and some API calls. So if you see everything, I mean, we should be living in a golden age where like SOCs are like, I have the panopticon. That is not the experience, right? And that's because it is so complex. Now, we have done the hard work over the last year and a half to build the infrastructure that can do it. And now our job is, beyond implementing it and getting customers, continuously adding things on that infrastructure that make the experience simpler and more intuitive for the end user so that a single person can handle much more complexity and scale, or a single agent, than they did before. And so the challenge isn't, can we run it? The challenge is, how do you model that in the right way? How do you expose it in the right way? What does baseline mean? How do you get away from, like, I'll give you a small example, all right? People talk about pipeline health, whether the source continues to report, right?
Yep.
That on its face sounds like a simple problem. Like, is it on, is it off? Now, if you're talking about a firewall, sure. It's always on, it's always noisy. What if you have a SaaS app that people only log into during the week because that's when they're working? Will you get an alert every day when the last person on Saturday like stops doing their thing and goes to dinner? Like, do you want to get a ticket every time that happens? That's not fun. What if you have services that are related to like seasons, and there's a period of time where people go on vacation? Like, if you go into what does pipeline health actually mean, it's a lot more than just like packets are there or not there. And so we've done sophisticated work to start building algorithms to be like, what is our confidence that that's a real problem with the data source versus not, and how do you triage that so that the end user doesn't get like 100 tickets a day of like log source stops reporting, right? And is it an API problem? Is it like a volume problem? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. And so a lot of these things we can do on a technical level, and our job now is to package them up to become intuitive and easy to use for the end users at a growing level of like abstractness in security outcomes.
Very interesting. We talk. What have we not talked about on the product side that you're doing today, or things that really we should highlight? What's gravitating for customers that maybe we haven't hit on?
So I think we talk about optimization. We do amazing reduction, amazing fidelity, and I think another key thing is the turnkey and very easy to understand. So a lot of customers, when we were talking to customers, they were like, "I'm using other vendors or looking at other vendors, but I don't know." They give me like a pack or like a thing. I have no idea what it does. Am I deleting important information? And what we do is when we give you we call them recipes that's customized to your organization. They look at it and they're like one customer said, I could take your flow diagram to my CISO and he would understand it. Like, it is simple to understand. I understand exactly what the trade-offs are. It takes me 5 minutes. I can make a management decision. I might say tweak A, B, C, D, and we're like, go in. We have built a system that is, on one hand, turnkey. You deploy, you add the API keys, go. It's like a whiz experience, and it's done. But if some guy is like, or girl is like, hey, field FX3572 gets tweaked in this way, I don't like it. You go in, you change that at any level of fidelity down to the latest byte, and it still works just immediately at high scale. So you get full configurability to whatever complexity that you want, but also entirely turnkey. And I don't think in security, nobody's done that. I mean, that's not a thing that you usually get. And then and that lets us serve, even at our stage, both small companies and very, very large ones across use cases where the customers are like, I have no idea, just solve the problem for me. And also, well, we know exactly what we want to like help us achieve that specific goal. And so that's one aspect. Another thing that's really cool, I think, that people we didn't touch about is normalizations. So, OCSF is something people talk about. If you look at the open source and available mappings and normalizations, they are okay. They're not amazing. We are able to deliver and achieve mappings and normalizations at a significant higher level of quality that's generally available. So more fields, more smart extraction of observables, all that sort of stuff. That comes for our dedication of really understanding the logs. So we will parse long strings and extract stuff from them. We'll do really sophisticated stuff to really get you a full message. And we'll have philosophical discussions on how things map. And that's been very popular. People really, really enjoy our mappings because they just work really well. And then your content works really well. And it's part of our general philosophy we're not delivering today yet, which is why are you, so I'll give you an example. Logins are a general type of thing. You would like to have a stream of all logins, which is basically user in a unified structured way into system with credential type, with permissions at date. And that's not achievable today. And you could look at all the logs, understand what they mean, and normalize into that. And that's where we want to go. Maybe you want to consume a login stream, not a log for every app. We're stuck thinking about every app. You can unify those. So that's very popular. So those two are very, very popular that we haven't talked about. And I think we talked about the analysis piece. I think those are the main things that we're doing.
So let me ask the consistent question across everybody. There are competitors out there, incumbents, maybe other startups. How do you differentiate? How do you see Beacon differentiating against them, whoever they are?
Yeah, I think Beacon is special because we bring incredible security expertise, incredible AI expertise, and incredible data expertise in one package. That is very, very rare, right? You can get each one of those separately. Listen, I was both at a SOC. I was both at did IR and I did an AI company, right? We have that all that coming together, which lets us deliver security outcomes with data capabilities in a way that's turnkey for the company. The other thing, and I think that's the other one, our focus on being both turnkey and is incredibly intuitive, but on the other hand, fully configurable, nobody's nailed that. You can get things that are very configurable. You can actually get them for free, like Logstash or Vector. You can configure them and do whatever. You can get like fully bespoke stuff, like your SIM has an opinion on everything, and like you just get their connector and that's it. We nailed them both in a way that is incredibly unique. And so whatever sophistication your team has, it is valuable for that team. And so, and by the way, even different sources, you want different things. So like you can do that entire thing. So I think that's very, very unique. Because we understand, and one of prospects said that to me the other day, that people are security engineers, not data engineers, right? And we let them get the power of this. They have amazing data engineering capabilities without requiring them to learn an entire other thing. By the way, we do get the other side where we get teams with data engineers, and then our infrastructure is better than whatever they were using. It's cheaper and better and more flexible. And so we could also be great infrastructure for data engineers at the same time. I'm very proud of our infrastructure. So that's another one. And so basically, we get you security outcomes, not just like engineering infrastructure, for much less work that's more pleasurable, and better outcomes from a fidelity and like optimization and like normalization perspective, and supporting all your environments, whatever scale, whatever connectors you need. Or, connectors is not like a 2-week ticket, like go to my product team. It just works. And that's why we've been able to win bake-offs against larger companies. We've been able to replace installations even at our size. And so we're very proud of that.
One of the things that I thought about when you're talking is I haven't seen a security specific data layer management, infrastructure data layer management. There have always been data solutions. You talk about Logstash, you talk about, Snowflake or insert any other layer here. And then you have the SIM on top of it working together. And so is that a fair statement that you guys are pretty much the only ones focused at that layer specifically for security?
I mean, I think there are other companies who claim that they are. There's a few new players in the space, in our space as well. I think nobody takes it to the level of seriousness that we do. Like we will ask you, like, I mean, give us your detections in whatever languages inside your SIM, and we will align the content to that because we understand them, and like we'll do that well. We're like, we are security people. Like we understand what you care about. Like we will explain to you in your language why we're doing filtering because we know how you think. We're not just like doing a tool for you. We understand. We've done your, like, not all your job. We've done your job. By the way, another thing we didn't talk about, which we're also going to do very soon, is posture. So like, we're like, a lot of times the challenge is not taking what you have and fixing it, but like, what should I be collecting? What's important? What is going to improve my security? Like, if I have another dollar to spend or another man hour to spend on my collection or even detection, where should I spend it? And if we see all the logs and we understand your SIM, we want to tell you how to do that really well as well. That's upcoming. But like,
I would imagine the whole process of taking Stix Taxi input, streams, open source, IOCs, insert whatever kind of structured document for an attack model that CrowdStrike or somebody else, and auto-magically pipeline that one to what are the signatures of detection, and to do that gap analysis. Are we collecting those fields and kind of adjust on the fly? Is that where we're going?
Yes.
That's awesome.
We haven't had the time and resource to focus on threat intelligence, but at the end of the day, that's another aspect that we believe that we want to go to. And by the way, some of that I will say makes more sense to happen in the SIM, and SIMs provide some of that, but some of that makes more sense in the pipeline. Yeah, there's, if you want to run a one-off query against the history, I mean, we're going to provide some querying backward stuff, but but if you want to have,
for me, it was, are we even collecting the appropriate data for those analytics to perform until you get those IOCs? And then, so I need to go all the way down to the data layer to say, are we even ingesting them? You know what I mean?
I'll tell you what's crazy. I mean, like if somebody, I mean, and it's a very difficult problem. And, I also serve on a board of a company from a cybersecurity perspective. And so I see the other side of this as a board member. If you ask the question, are we collecting what we need to be secure? The true answer CISOs would actually give if they had to was, I have no idea. I think we do. But or maybe I know we don't. It's either I know we don't or I don't know. Those are the two possible answers, because there's no way for you to do that. But our vision, which we're going to be delivering soon, is if I see all your logs, I have an assessment of what your assets are. I know what things are important. I see all the messages. I could tell you that you're in a good or a bad. I might miss something, but like it'll be the edge of the thing. I'll be able to say like, where are you against that in a broad way across everything, because I went to the effort of understanding every single field everywhere, right? To the effort of like, what are the assets? How would I look at them, etc. And I want to be like, my dream is for like, and again, that'll take a little bit of time, but like my dream is to give you a certificate that says, or a dashboard that says, yes, your detection program has what it needs to fulfill the objectives, you know? And if something goes out of whack, so something stops responding, I'll be like, hey, that host has Windows event log coming from it, but not CrowdStrike. Go look at that, from a collection detection perspective or whatever, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
But this is not like a Zafran Nagomi thing, but like, and I think we're on that path. I mean, it takes some time to build that out, but we're on that path. And I think now, because we can process not at $2 per gig, but it's significantly better cost at a very, very sophisticated inline processing plus our security knowledge, that's no longer a dream. That's something that we could potentially achieve.
Yeah. So I'll ask the pointed question. And if you need 5 seconds, you let me know. What's the one thing that you want the audience to take away about Beacon? If there was one thing.
Maybe a question to ask yourself, right? If your security telemetry problems were no longer a problem, they just worked. You don't have to think about cost trade-offs. You can run any analysis that you want. What would that do to your security program? And if that's interesting for you, then you can come talk to me.
Well, I can't answer that. I'm not in the seat anymore, but I could tell you if I was, one, the opportunity to have 100% of my assets, application layer, infrastructure layer, doesn't matter, ingested for analysis. That was always the first problem, is you never have 100%. For various reasons, collector development, it's too much cost, whatever it is. I would have the ability to get much more comfortable of just have that visibility of the security layer. Then really then it forces the balloon bubble up to, do we have the right analysis over that data ingest or that visibility to say, do we have an issue or not? The problem that I see in most environments, including the ones that I've been in, is either it was 10% visibility or 50%, but you didn't have the confidence it was in the 90 or 100 or whatever. Some companies have gotten there, but that's a very painful, long journey. To be able to deliver that at a confidence level, a short journey from point A to point B is really something to think about.
So, and I'll take it further than that. So you get the full visibility, but it's not just visibility. The data also comes in a format that your tools understand and can work with. So you're leveraging your investments in the right way, and both your agents, your detection rules, and your humans can read and understand. I mean, if I give you full visibility, but it's all binary ceph syslog, then you're not in a much better place, honestly. So you need it in a nice way, and you want to leverage your tools. And not only is that, you have a sense of the catalog. Like if it's all indexes with random names, like you're not in a great place. So not only do you get your telemetry in a cost-effective way, but in a structure that makes it effective for you to do analysis. And so you can leverage your investments, and then hopefully your team can focus on what are unique threats my business faces that I need to do custom stuff. I mean, that's why you got the team, right? I can do custom stuff for. Honestly, a possible travel should be out of the box with the tools that you bought. I need to get you the data to make that work.
That's right.
What are unique things in your business, in your industry, where you need to spend those extra cycles to or cutting edge tools you've implemented like Gen AI? Why are you spending your time trimming down? This is a story that I had once. One of the times when I was starting the company, and I knew we were onto something. This was like early in the company. I'm speaking to this big bank, and they're like, "Well, we had a Splunk bill. It was over $10 million a year just for security." And then we did a big project and we cut it down to single-digit millions of dollars. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, I'd love to learn from your journey. Why are you talking to us? Because, it sounds like you're doing a good job. You have a whole team. And they were like, well, we have Microsoft and we're unsure of how to treat Entra ID logs. And I was like, don't you pay Microsoft like $1 million a second for their services? Can't you ask them? And they were like, they're not sure either. And I was like, how is it that we all buy the same tools pretty much? I mean, if you don't tell me anything about your company, your IDP provider is one of 1, 2, 3 options. Your firewall is one of 5 options. Your cloud provider is all of 3, 4 options. Like, why are we not sharing that? Like, why are we not learning that knowledge and sharing from each other? Like, you're talking to a startup that's like 3 months old about how to handle Entra ID logs. Something doesn't work. And so if we could take all that unit work that everybody does again and again and again and again of ingesting WAF logs to Splunk, how many people have done that? I had a joke, like how much VC money was wasted on Tel Aviv engineers building an Okta connector? Like, can you imagine the amount of economic activity on that specific thing 1,000 times? We take that away, and now you can focus on protecting your organization. That's where I want to go.
Yeah. That last point, I paid a lot of money for a lot of, contractors and internal employees developing connectors, and it's just painful. And obviously we have technology now to make it really easy and consumable. But is there
by the way, you think it is, so I'll give you an example. We were building this connector for a SaaS product. And we realized that some of the biggest vendors are dropping 10% of messages because they did it quickly. But they didn't realize that the way that the beta is received, there's messages that come in a delay, and they're not querying the history to figure out if there was message that was delivered. So just to give you an example, in G Suite, some of the events can appear up to 5 days later. Are you back paging to get those back, to get the history correctly, or just taking the last page every minute and seeing what's in there?
Why would they come 5 days later?
I mean, it's their infra, and it's a big organization. There's all kinds of complicated stuff. It's a complicated infra. So like, it's easy if you know exactly what you're doing and you're an expert. If you're not, if this is a hobby for you, then it's not good. For us, connectors, which are a hobby for are our day job. For us, normalization, which is a cost of doing business, is the day job. For us, like all these things that for everybody else is a hobby or a cost of doing business, it's our work.
Now, I don't know about you, but in every team that I was a part of, every security person said, I really want to focus my time on developing the data infrastructure layer for our SIM. It was a passion, a deep passion of every single one of them. How can I spend 50% of my time for a SIM managing the data layer? It's so painful, especially on an on-premise SIM.
And I'll tell you the other thing, by the way, and this is a little bit organizational in how we build the company. In most places, you don't get promoted for writing 100 connectors. That's not a lucrative career path. In Beacon, if you can learn how to do 100 connectors quickly, you'll go places. Like, we have built an organization that is built to solve at like a big SIM provider. That's not the most exciting part of the business for them. They want to do cool analytics AI stuff. We have taken this part that has been a problem for decades, that has never been solved well, and we're solving it, truly, hopefully for the last time, hopefully. And we've built the entire company to be around that, and we think that's going to pay dividends.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really happy to see, from when you started to where you guys are today, and really excited about seeing where you're going to be in 12, 24, 154 months, insert number there. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that maybe we should? Other than war stories over beer when you come to San Francisco next.
I mean, if we started the discussion, around why I got into this and like my personal journey, maybe I'll finish with like a broad statement about the world.
There you go.
We're in a period of great change and turmoil with AI, with all this stuff going on, but we're also on a time of great opportunity. And I think, we see it at Beacon through the transformations that are happening to security telemetry, which is a very narrow view of the world. Yeah. But I think that for anybody, like, the world is full of opportunity right now. There are so many things to do. There are so many places where the technology can be implemented to improve people's lives. we are living in an age of amazing growth. And what's cool about growth, that it's not zero sum. You can do things that are just net positive value and make people's lives better. And the more you can do that, like the richer your life is. And so all I say is, like, you know, we're here to like solve this super painful problem that people are doing in security. And I push everybody to keep doing stuff like that in wherever they are, because there is so much cool stuff and positive stuff to do.
Gal, awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to talking to you next.
Thank you. Always a pleasure, man. And we'll do that beer in San Francisco.